My name is Greg. I'm a federal agent, and these are my watches.
Greg?
Hi. Nice to meet you, Teddy.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for joining us for this episode.
I'm honored. This is great.
So before we look at some of these watches, which you have a great collection, I'd like to establish a little bit about what you do. I know there's some secrecy about what you can say and what you can't say, but that might create some intrigue for people that are listening. So a federal agent. So what do you do?
So yeah, I'm a federal agent in the federal government in the United States. Basically, it's a law enforcement officer, okay? So we do everything as a federal agent. You do everything from making arrests to seizures to testifying in trials, grand juries, things like that. So.
And where does watches start to play a role? And how did this connection to watches start to come forward for you?
Well, honestly, I remember the earliest memory I have of a watch was my uncle, and he had a watch, and it was like a pulsar or something like that. It would light up, you know. And I remember as a little kid snuggling up next to him or whatever, he hit it and light it up. I was like, oh my God, that's really cool. I was just fascinated by it. And then, I mean, that's my first earliest memory of a watch. But then later on, as I got older, watching a lot of movies, okay? Watching movies like First Blood, Sylvester Stallone, Rambo, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando. Movies like that, you know, there's a watch shot, you know, the bomb's about to go off, or we're about to hit the door, and you know, and so to me it was like, it was kind of tactical, if you will. And I was like, man, I got to have a tough guy watch, because I looked at these guys as tough guys. And my first watch that I remember my parents buying for me was actually a G-Shock. I had that G-Shock for years, and then when it stopped working, please don't be mad at me, but I threw it away. I don't know why I did this, and I'm so mad at myself for doing it. I wish I would have kept that watch. And then later on, and one of the watches afterwards that my parents bought me, battery's dead on it, but I still charge it up every once in a while, or get a new battery for it, is a Citizen sailing watch. And they got it for me when they were on a vacation somewhere, and that was my second watch. And I wore that in mosh pits. I wore that at concerts, and then I had my own band and started a band, and I've got pictures of me on stage with that watch too. And so my next nice watch, when I got engaged to my wife, I was like, you know, I should get an engagement watch. You're getting an engagement ring, we should get an engagement watch. And actually it's this piece here. This Citizen, this was I think they called it the ProMaster at the time.
Still part of the ProMaster collection, yep.
ProMaster collection, and this is the Citizen Blue Angels. Now, I'm not a pilot, but I love all the functions. It's a world timer, so you've got all the different time zones. You have 2 different alarms, I think. No, 3 different alarms, I believe. A countdown timer, a stopwatch. I saw this at a mall when we were dating, and I was like, I love this watch. I want this watch. And she surprised me after we got engaged with it at Christmas. And it was one of the best surprises I ever got, because I never thought, because we didn't make a lot of money, and you know, she was working at Blockbuster Video, you know.
There's a throwback.
Yeah, there's a throwback. And you know, so this watch has a lot of memory for me and a lot of meaning. The dial did wind up wearing out a bit, and the case was shot. So I contacted Citizen and had them, I got a new case and a new dial for the watch. Or no, I'm sorry, this is the original dial. It was the case and the bezel, my mistake. It was the case and the bezel was all chewed up. So they gave me the old case and the old bezel, so I still have that. But the original dial is in here, because I still like to keep things like new and stuff. So. And
they still do these affiliated collaborations with Blue Angel. Like, this is still something they do to this day.
Yeah, yeah. Except now everything is with the solar stuff, the Echo Drive,
exactly.
Which and Citizen does an awesome job with that. I mean, I love it. So I wore that for many years.
So from Citizen, where did you go after that?
So after Citizen, I started learning more a little bit about like Swiss watches, because I didn't really know that much about Swiss watches. Like, I had heard of Rolex, like everybody knows Rolex, and I was getting interested, and I was trying to figure out, like, you know, the different brands that are out there. And one of the brands that I was interested in was Breitling. I started seeing some ads for Breitling, but really even before that, I was going to different watch stores, and there was Tissot. So this one right here is the first Swiss watch that I ever bought, and at the time this Tissot was, I think, about $300. I got it from a jeweler in St. Louis. Mind you, this has never been serviced, and this watch has got to be 25 years old, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
And
when people talk about these edit calibers, I mean,
they're great. Yeah,
they work.
ETA. No,
Yep.
they know what they're doing, and I mean, they're workhorses.
Yep.
There's no question about it. So it went into that, and I was so proud of myself because to me this was like a dress watch. So if I had a job interview, for example, you know, because I had started looking at, well, what am I going to, you know, I graduated from college. I wanted to be a federal agent. So I started applying to different federal agencies and went through different hiring processes. I wanted a nice watch on my wrist. So that was my suit watch. So I was very proud of that. And you know, I like the white dial. Yeah, it's just a beautiful watch, has the date, subdued. It's not huge or anything like that, but that spoke to me, and that was like, hey, I'm getting ready for an interview. That's what I'm going to wear.
You mentioned Breitling. So what was
Yes.
your fascination there? And you have a couple pieces from Breitling.
Yes. So this one, this is the Chronomat 44 GMT. Now, if you know, some people like bling, right? And you know, they like diamonds and things like that. I'm not into that. If I want bling, I just want high polished. So I wanted something kind of blingy, if you will, you know, something a little more dressy. This has a chronograph. It has a different time zone, so you've got the other hand there for the second time zone. But you have your inner chapter ring, which is 24 hours, so you can go off that, but then you also have the bezel. So essentially, you could do 3 time zones with this watch, which I love, and I love having a chronograph. And the thing with the chronograph, as silly as it sounds, I like to time my flights. So when I'm on the plane, as soon as it leaves the ground, I hit the chronograph. As soon as it touches down, hit it again. I just want to know. So that, to me, that is my perfect travel watch. I love traveling with that watch. It's easy to click through the different time zones. On the regular hour hand, you can still keep the home time or GMT. I leave it actually as Greenwich Mean Time. One of the other hobbies I have, I'm a ham radio operator.
Okay.
That's old school stuff, and you know, when you're running ham, a lot of times you're just going off of the Greenwich Mean Time. So that's I just leave all my GMT watches that way. But I love the GMT function. So the other Breitling, for example, that I got was this Avenger Night Mission. I never had a nice black watch besides like a G-Shock. So this one really spoke to me. I like the green dial. It's all blacked out. It's a chronograph. So this to me is something that I could wear on the range. One of the things I do also, I'm a firearms instructor for my job. Absolutely love doing that. I love shooting. So, and training other people, other agents, task force officers and things. This is what I will wear a lot of times when I'm training. So it's very robust, very rugged.
So a few brands actually do this black coating well. Breitling's one of them that does it.
Oh,
it actually looks the part and holds up.
Oh,
over time.
It does. I've worn this, through training and things like that, and I've not had any significant scratches on it. And my watches, they'll get scratched. I mean, they get beat. So.
It's a couple enthusiast picks on here, but one that catches my eye is whenever I see this on somebody's wrist or in their collection, I'm like, okay, this is somebody that probably knows a thing or two, or at least has done some research about what's out there for them.
Yeah.
Fortis.
Oh.
Very cool, underappreciated history.
Very much.
But most people don't know about it. You want to tell us a little bit why you were drawn to that?
Yeah, so actually, Fortis actually goes back a little bit more when I was getting into watches and I was still at home working at my dad's machine shop, and I was in the band and everything. And I remember I was making deliveries, because I run machines, I do deliveries, I did a little bit of everything. Well, I was doing deliveries one time and going by a jeweler in the Chicago area, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stop in real quick, see what kind of watches they have. And I went in, and they had Fortis. And I saw Fortis display, and this Cosmonaut chronograph just spoke to me because it's like a tuna can, it's thick, it's beefy, you have your chronograph, you got your day, your date. To me, it was what I called a tough guy watch, right? It reminded me of something that I would think Sylvester Stallone would wear, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or something going back to my childhood watching those early movies. And that's what spoke to me, and I was like, I'm going to get one someday.
And you had no idea about like the history, connection to Russian cosmonauts, and like how this actually went to space. And,
yes, yeah. I learned about that through learning more about the watch, but what spoke to me first was just the look of it. It's just a very tough-looking chronograph. So this watch I wound up picking up after I became an agent. I got stationed in New York City, and I was able to save up some coin, actually sold some silver, because I had bought some gold and silver coins, sold some silver to be able to buy this watch. And my friend really got me a good deal on this, because he had a hook with someone, and I wore that thing through tons of arrests, training exercises. I wore it through a SWAT school. I've worn that thing ice climbing, mountaineering, sub-zero camping. Yeah, it was, I think one of the trips I had it on, it was -20.
Wow.
Yeah, doing a backpacking trip with some friends. So that watch has seen a lot.
And it's held up very well.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Shows some battle scars, but not too many.
Oh yeah.
It lived to see another day.
I think so, It's a great piece. Yeah, Fortis is awesome.
Speaking of enthusiast picks, we have a monster on the table.
Yeah.
Let's hear about this.
Yeah, so the Seiko Monster. I remember my passion grew even more for watches when I started going to the different stores in the New York area. One of which is Cellini Jewelers. Well, I had a good friend there named Phil, who was their manager. And, you know, he introduced me into more watches, and he introduced me to another friend of mine named Lowell. And Lowell, being another collector, loves watches, and he was telling me about the Seiko Monster. I was like, what's this? So I started learning more about it, and I was like, wow, this is also a tough guy watch. You know, I was kind of thinking of it that way. And what happened was my wife and I were at a mall, an outlet mall in New York, and they had Seikos in there, and they had a Seiko Monster. And I had been told by my other friends, they're like, you know what, even Patek collectors will have a Seiko Monster in their collection. I was like, I think I want this. So she actually gifted this to me for my birthday. And over the last several years, I gifted it to him. So my son had been wearing that for actually probably at least a year or two before he got into other watches as well. But yeah.
It's hard to think about when you say that Patek comment. Yes, there is some truth to that, but because also there's really nothing else like this. I mean, you see like this, like the imposing case architecture. You can see kind of like the tuna DNA in here, and the side profile. You can see these large, samurai hour hand. I mean, there's nothing else like this thing.
No, it's great, and it's a tough watch. And the unique thing is, you don't wind it; you have to shake it. Which I was like, what? You know, especially after having it Tissot.
Those old school Seiko movement, huh?
Exactly, the old school Seiko movement. You just shake it for, 30 seconds or something like that, and put it on your wrist, and you're good to go. But I've worn this.
Has that one ever been serviced?
No.
Yeah,
never been serviced.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, and she still runs. It's a good watch, yeah.
Then we have, where do you want to go next? This is your collection. What do you want to talk about?
You know, kind of going back with the theme of some of my history.
Yeah.
My wife, I decided to get her a nice watch, and we were looking, and we looked online, looking at pictures, and this is a Hamilton Jazzmaster. It spoke to her. She liked the bracelet, she liked the color of the dial and everything. So I was like, okay, I want to get you your first nice watch, and I got that for her. And then over the last several years, I've gifted it to my daughter now. So she wears it when we get dressed up and things like that. So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little watch, a little open heart.
Yeah.
Little finish on the dial.
And Hamilton's a great brand. It's got a great history. It's an awesome watch.
So you have a couple other smaller micros. You want to maybe talk about those
too?
Yeah,
absolutely. Let's go here with this one. So there's a company in Chicago. We have a few companies in Chicago, but one of the companies that this is from is a company called Astor and Banks. Astor and Banks got together with a friend of mine named Mark. Mark came up with a concept called Matter of Time. He designed this watch with Astor and Banks. The concept of Matter of Time and this watch is, for those that want to purchase it, because there's a limited run on them, you purchase the watch with the caveat that you have to gift it to someone within 2 years. While you have it, there's an online time capsule. And on that online time capsule, you know, you're wearing the watch, you wore it to a certain event or whatever, take some pictures of it, talk about it. Because we know, and I've seen it on your channel and the people that, you know, you've interviewed so far, and just being a watch person, it's those stories that are compelling of why we have these watches. It's not about the money. It's not about how expensive or how cheap they are. It's about the story behind it. So when I heard about this concept, I thought this is a great idea. You do this time capsule and then you gift it to someone. And the money that is originally purchased for it is, I don't remember exactly how much, but a good chunk of it is actually going to be going to a charity that a group of members that have the watch will.
I never heard this. This is a great cause. That's great.
It is. It's awesome.
So you purchased this, and you're now looking for a potential suitor to maybe.
Eventually,
yes,
not
okay.
yet. I've only had a few months with it, so
Okay.
it's going to be on my wrist for a little while. I've already worn it at some pretty significant events in my life, and started the time capsule. But I mean, it's great. It's a beautiful watch. The work on it is great.
No, the case
design,
is great. I mean,
everything.
this is probably one of the cooler micros I've seen pop up. I mean, like their Fortitudes, their Sea Ranger, I believe.
Oh
the
yeah,
other,
I have a Sea Ranger as well.
They're cool watches.
Yeah, Andrew, the owner, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. They're a great brand.
Yeah, and based in Chicago, as you mentioned.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Cool Midwestern pride. Then you also have another kind of smaller independent brand here.
Yes, this is, if I pronounce it correctly, Messina. And this is so they just did this, I think they did 150 pieces just this past summer. And there was some controversy over this watch because it is to pay homage to a 1940s Patek, if I remember correctly. And people are like, oh, it looks exactly like it. You just put a different brand, name on it and all that. It's like, they're paying homage to it. They're not trying to fake it. They're not putting, Patek with an E on the end or something like that, And I thought it was great when the design, when it came out and I saw it, I was like, wow, this is a really cool piece because of that homage to Patek and at a great price point and everything. This was actually gifted to me just recently by a very important collector who I never met, but knows me, is familiar with my Instagram, knows some of the people that I'm friends with in the Chicago area. And I've gone through some difficulty over the last month, and I was in the hospital with cancer surgery in my mouth. And he messaged me and said, hey, I just want to cheer you up, see how you're doing. I'd like to stop, drop some things off for you. And I was like, okay, well, come on in, let's hang out. And he's like, no, you're in a bad spot. We'll break bread another time. I just want to drop something off for you. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know. I thought it was maybe some watch catalogs or books or something to look at. And the nurses come in and they're like, oh my God, this nice gentleman just came by. He brought candy for us because it's right before Halloween. And here's a gift bag. I was like, okay, open up the gift bag. There's a big box in there, and that box was a Lego set. But then I pulled this out. And I mean, I just had tears running down my face. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe it. And
what a gift.
It is. And it just goes to show that there's so much kindness and generosity of people in the watch industry, in the watch world, collectors and stuff. I've met so many amazing people. So I was flattered.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
So next, we have some Rolexes on the table. We also have, I would say, one of your kind of heavy hitters here too. So where do you want to go next?
Well, you said the heavy hitter. We can go with the heavy hitter.
Let's do it.
So this is a Vacheron Constantin dual time. This is an older iteration because they recently redid it, I think in the last 5 years. I like the new one. I like this one better.
The older generation?
Yes, I like the older generation. So this actually has a JLC movement in it, which, I don't know if all people know, but, some of the brands have shared movements and things. So this has a JLC movement in it. When we were in New York, my parents had come to visit, and my mom and dad were looking to buy some watches for an anniversary for themselves. So during that time, I was like, well, we got to go to Cellini. We stopped by Cellini, talked to my friend Phil there, and my dad's looking at watches. But when he was looking, I was steering him towards this. And he's like, Vacheron, what's this? And I tell him about the history of Vacheron. And he kept joking with me. He's like, the only reason why you want that watch is you know it's going to be on your wrist someday. I'm like, no, you gotta get what you like. But it did speak to him. He liked it. Wore it for several years. And then just a few years ago, he was like, you know what? I don't wear it that often. You know, you're going to wear it when I'm dead, and I won't see you happy with it. Why don't you take it now? So it was gifted to me. From him. So it's cool because I was there with him when he purchased it, and now he gifted it to me. And every time I wear it, I think of my father. So one of the other brands that I'm interested in is, of course, Rolex. A lot of people like Rolex, and it's funny because I kind of poo-pooed Rolex for a long time, but I kind of fell in love with it now. So I like it. I really like it. Going back,
you don't have to feel bad about it. It's okay.
I know.
There's other people that like Rolex.
Well, trust me, my one friend Lowell, he'll give me crap about it all day. You know, he's like, you didn't like Rolex until you started talking to me. Well, he had an Explorer 2, a black Explorer 2, and I was like, I didn't want a Submariner. Everybody's got a Submariner. I'm not getting a sub. But the new 41mm sub came out, and this is during COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So we're doing Red Bar stuff via Zoom. And everybody's talking about this in one of our meetings. Oh my gosh, this thing is great. I'm like, guys, really? It's 1 millimeter bigger. Yes, they changed the movement a little bit. The clasp, you know, it's a little wider, whatever. Is it really that big of a damn deal? One of the guys who I mentioned earlier, Mark, who's tied to the Astor and Banks and, well, it's Matter of Time is his concept. He's like, borrow mine. I was like, really? I was like, yeah. He's like, I'll bring it over, wear it for a while, see what you think. I'm not going to say no to someone letting me borrow
That's a good friend right there.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I'm like, okay. So I had it. I wore it for a few weeks. I get it. I'm like, okay, I get why people like the sub. I'm like, it's great, and it has a great history too, you know? You think of, in terms of even like Navy SEALs, things like that. And Rolex also has a tie to Panerai, which we can talk about next. I'm not a diver, but it's a tough guy watch. But it also is dressy as well. So after having it for a few weeks, I fell in love. And I was like, you know what? I think I got to get one. Part of the reason why I wanted this was I had just gotten over my first cancer surgery. And I was like, you know what? I beat it. I deserve it. I need something nice. So it was kind of partial with learning about it, falling in love with it, and then it was finally like, no, you know what? I've been through a lot. I think I should get one.
You earned it.
Yeah. So I did, and I love it. It's a great watch.
The 41mm case, I mean, it still wears pretty relatively true to a 40. I mean, it's how they were been able to pull that off, and it's a good combination of there's the new Rolex and there's the former Rolex, and it meets that nice middle ground between that. And
100%.
It's a watch you'll see very frequently, but it doesn't grow that tiring to me. I still love a Submariner.
It's a timeless design, and it took me a while to finally agree to that. But you're
you almost don't want to agree with it, but it just works.
But here's the thing: it's the same design that they had in the 1950s, right? And you're talking how many watches have been, or how many watch brands have copied that design?
I say most of the hostility towards the Submariner in any way is not almost the Submariner's fault. It's the fact that it's so good that people are copying it, and you see the Submariner in other places that are not Rolex.
You're right, absolutely, which is fine though. But that just goes to show that it's a hell of a design, you know. And
then you have a GMT Master as well.
Yes.
Batman.
Yes. So part of the reason why I decided to go with the Batman, I mean, everybody loves a Pepsi, but when I saw the Batman, I don't like the GMT Master on the regular bracelet.
I'm a Jubilee guy.
Totally Jubilee for that watch. I mean, this works for this, but I didn't like the center polished links on the GMT Masters. When you could get that on a Jubilee, I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I wanted to get this. Black and blue, law enforcement colors. So it kind of ties in with my career. So I thought that was kind of cool. I love it, absolutely love it. And to me, I bought that for my 50th birthday to myself. So it was like, you know what? Why not? So
the Jubilee, I think, is an amazing combination. I agree with you. And there's really, it's almost a different watch on the Jubilee than it is on an Oyster.
I think so.
And just how it wears, like it's a small 40. It's almost like a 39 on the wrist when you put that on. Comparing that to your sub, it is like it's not that much different in terms of that case and how it's constructed, but it does feel like almost an entirely different thing.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I have some big watches. I mean, you got a 44 millimeter here. This is a 44 as well. The Fortis is a 42. But then when we get into the Panerais, that's quite a bit bigger too. But yes, I love it. I love the colors. Blue is just, it's a beautiful blue, and I like a lot of blue. So, and the black and blue, like I said, tying that to law enforcement, I just thought that this would be a good gift for myself. And I was like, why not? I'm 50, why not? Here we go.
Big 5-0.
Yeah.
So now we have Panerai, and I know you have a lot of connection to Panerai, Paneristi.
Yes.
Loud and proud.
Yes,
and you
I
also just have a lot of sentimental value with these pieces.
Yes,
So I'd love to hear a little more, and I would love to share this with the rest of the audience.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, just kind of going with kind of talking more about my career and things like that, working in law enforcement. The PAM 389. Now, I remember when this came out, I was interested in Panerai. I started learning about Paneristi and Panerai through Cellini because they were carrying Panerai. And I heard all these stories about these Paneristis, and I found the forums, and these guys are like posting pictures all over the world. Their watches.
Like a cult.
And, yeah, it's like a cult, and they're all hanging out in different places and doing things for each other. And I was like, wow, that's something really interesting, you know, and really neat. So Panerai was something that, it was kind of a love-hate in the beginning. Because I was like, I don't know. I mean, that's a really different looking watch, you know, with the crown guard and everything. And I was like, I wasn't sure. But when I started to learn more about the history of Panerai in movies, and really, they owe a lot to Stallone, to Sylvester Stallone, having one of the first ones in Daylight, for example. So going back to those movies and seeing things like The Expendables, which is just a fun movie, and you know they're wearing Panerais and things like that. So Panerai, I was like, I started to get interested in, and I was learning a lot, and just like, man, there's just this like cult following with this, and there's this love and this passion for this brand. So I started to fall into it. One of the ones that I really liked, like I said, was the 389 because of the black ceramic bezel. Some of the other ones prior to this didn't have a ceramic bezel, and it just didn't speak to me. The ceramic bezel did. And I was like, and this to me, is a tough guy watch. And I've got a green strap on here, so I use this also when I'm doing firearms instruction, when I'm doing training and things like that. So to me, it's for that. It's more of an aggressive watch that can take a beating. So I wanted to get this, and it was through a gift as well, partially, and it was just an amazing piece to have. So I was very excited to get it, and I was like, wow, this is a cool Panerai.
And we have one final watch on the table. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know this means a lot to you in a variety of ways. Yeah. It's more than just a watch, so can you tell us the story here?
Yeah, so this is a PAM 372. With the PAM 372, you have a lot of DNA of the history of Panerai in it. Now, the radiomere is really kind of where it started, and this is aluminum where you have the
crown guards.
The crown guard, thank you, where you have the crown guard and everything. But this is like DNA Panerai all over. So this is one that's significant to me because this was a gift, and this was a gift under some horrible circumstances in my life. 7 years ago, my wife and my two small children and I were driving home from a vacation in Wisconsin. And while we were driving home, there was a vehicle driving erratically in front of us. And as I attempted to pass the vehicle, because he was causing chaos there, the driver came out with a revolver and he began shooting at us. The first round hit my son's door, but thankfully it was stopped by a 1-inch wide bar inside that door. The second round hit my wife in the neck and killed her. I couldn't draw my gun quick enough to stop the threat. While I was drawing my gun and those rounds were hitting the car, I had to reholster and get out of the line of fight, get out of the line of fire. And I had to render care, try and calm my kids down, I was plugging the hole in my wife's neck with my finger to try and stop the bleeding. It was the darkest day of my life. Now, I'm going to rewind a little bit. Going to tie it back to Fortis. I was on a Fortis Facebook page, and the guy who administered it, his name's Stephen. He actually lives here in Cleveland. I had the great time to see him again last night. Stephen and I started talking about Fortis, and he's like, help me administer the page, and I started doing that with him. And when we talked more, I was like, what other watches are you into? He's like, oh, I'm a Paneristi. Hey, you guys are nuts. I've heard a lot of stuff about you guys, right? And he's like, you should come to one of our events. I was like, I don't have a Panerai. He's like, it doesn't matter. You're a watch person. I want you to come to one of the events that I'm going to set up here in Cleveland. I was like, okay. So I asked my wife, do you want to go to a watch event with me? She's like, hang out with a bunch of watch geeks for a weekend? I'm like, come on, we just go have a good time, we'll be out of town, we'll leave the kids with my parents. She's like, okay, we'll go. So I told him, I said we were going. Well, that was supposed to be a few months after my wife was killed. Stephen had called me every single day after what had happened, checking on me. Are you okay? Is everything going okay? What can I do for you? Is there anything I can do to help? It was unbelievable. At my wife's wake, one of the first people I saw is a friend of mine, a dear friend now, named Ralph, who's a Paneristi. Never met him before in my life, not once. He comes up to me and he says, listen, I'm a Paneristi from Chicago. I know you can't make the Cleveland event because of everything, but we are here for you. Anything we can do. This is a stranger, Teddy. Yeah. I have no idea who this guy is, but this is the kindness and love and generosity of people to just be like, what can I do to help you? I was floored. A couple weeks go by. I'm learning more about, Paneristi, and one of the guys from, Stephen was actually like, can I share your story with the Paneristis? I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, We had been talking, and a few weeks go by, and he's like, hey, I want you to rethink coming to the event. I was like, okay. He's like, why don't you get your mind off things, bring the kids, we'll make it kid-friendly, come on out. And I was like, you know what, I could use a distraction. Never been to Cleveland, we can go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, me and the kids love music. So I told him, I said, you know what, let me ask my children. So I asked my son, I said, do you want to go to a watch party? My son's like, can I wear one of your watches? I was like, absolutely. My daughter, can I wear Mama's jewelry? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I told my friend Stephen, I said, you know what, I'm coming. He's like, great. He goes, how are you going to get here? And I said, well, I'll drive. It's not that far. I got, hotel points at a hotel, because they were staying in a nice hotel downtown Cleveland and everything. He's like, no, you're not. He goes, you're flying, and you're staying with us in the hotel with everybody else. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, I'll just, no. He goes, we're taking care of it. I'm like, I don't even know you, man. And he's like, this is what Paneristis do. I said, I don't have a Panerai. He's like, it doesn't matter. We want you here. And I couldn't believe it. So we get there, and my friend Stephen, he picks me and the kids up, and he's blasting Iron Maiden because he knows we like Maiden and everything. And I brought my watches, and he's like, I'm so excited. He gives me this hug, and I've never met this guy in my life, and I am like, it's like we had been friends forever, And he's like, I'm so excited you're here. This is going to be great. I was like, okay. He's like, when we get to the hotel, he goes, just get cleaned up, relax, just check in and, chill out for a little bit, and then come downstairs to, they had like a small room for all the people that were there. And there might have been, I think, maybe 20 or 30 people. So they were having a nice dinner and all this stuff. And he says, just when you're ready, come downstairs. Okay. And everybody knows who we are because I'm the only guy there with, these two little kids, and people know that story and everything. So I I'm just starting to talk to people. And one of the guys I remember, he came up to me, and I could just tell this guy was like military or law enforcement or something like that. And we started talking, and sure enough, yeah, he's former military, intel, and all kinds of other secret squirrel stuff. He had 2 gift bags that he gave to my children. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it's like, these are for your kids. And then he also had challenge coins for the kids. Do you know what a challenge coin is?
No, I don't know what that is. No.
So a challenge coin, military units and law enforcement have these things called challenge coins. And there's all kinds of history with the challenge coin. And if, you know, for your unit, if you don't have your coin on you, you gotta buy drinks, sort of thing. If you're at the bar or what have you. He gets down on his knees and he gives each of my kids a challenge coin from his military unit and says, you know, in the bravery and everything you guys are going through, I want you to have this. I was crying. I was like, this is unbelievable. This is so kind, so much love that's being shown to my family from strangers, from people I don't even know. And these are people in the watch community. You know, these are people from Panerai. But even with what happened with my wife, the Red Bar community in Chicago was amazing to me. The people that were at the funeral, the wake, just the kindness and the love and the support. I'm so blessed, Teddy. I am just honored to have the life I have, even in the tragedy that I've gone through. I had my wife for 18 years. And I'm so lucky because I have 2 beautiful children with her. And I'm just blessed, and I feel very, 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 very fortunate for everything that I have, my career, my family, my children, everything. So, you know, he gives the kids the coins. I'm crying. I'm like, this is unbelievable. We sit down to dinner, and as we sit down to dinner, my friend Steven pulls out a frame with a document in the frame. And at the top, it's got the Panerai logo, and at the bottom, it's got 2 lists of names of people and the countries they're from, in a little paragraph. And to sum it up in that paragraph was like, in your time of tragedy, when you desired to be with us, it was a call to action. It took less than 2 hours to secure your lifelong membership into what you now know as a new family. The last part, we welcome you with open arms and a covered wrist. And out comes a box, and it's this, my PAM 372. And they said, look,
it's goosebumps.
We can't bring your wife back, but maybe when you wear this watch, you'll know that people care, and there's goodness out there in the world. And I was crying. I couldn't believe it. And it was all through this generosity and love and support. It's unbelievable.
Well, Greg, I don't know how to say it other than just that this has probably been the most touching conversation I've had in the watch. I've been on camera probably 1,000 times, and that was a profound story. And I think it shows an important point that I always try to bring up, that we see these objects, and we see them as objects first.
Yeah.
But then we recognize there's human connected to them.
Oh, yeah.
These are human.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, idiotic as that sounds, there's I think truth to that, and I think you demonstrate it very well. And
thank you.
I appreciate you for being open to show your collection, but also to show a little bit of who you are with them.
I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of what you do, and I think you're bringing a lot of people into the watch world at all different kinds of levels, and I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate that. So I'm honored to be here. I really am.
Honor was all mine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.